Hello and welcome JBA fans, I'm your host King L5 and today I am bringing you week 5 of the JBA. Now this is up against the Polish Elf. He is our last divisional matchup of the season. Next week, being the last week, is the interdivisional matches. But yeah, so we really want to win this one because right now I believe we're both 2-2. I could be wrong. He might be. Yeah, I think we're both 2-2 at this point. But yeah, so he recently picked up Braviary, and I saw that on his roster, and I looked at my team and I saw there was only one thing I could do, and that's that third Pokemon you see right there. I decided to bring Stunfisk to its first match to basically combat the Braviary. Basically, that's the only reason it's there, because otherwise Braviary is such a big threat to my team. I was going into this game really scared of a sub-toxic variant. It could 1v1 my Alomomola. Sub-bulk up could also be pretty frightening, although I do have ways to beat that, although I would have to sack at least a Pokemon to deal with it. So yeah, Braviary was threat number 1, and so let's go into my team real quick. I have once again a bulky Scarf Drill. This drill is actually super duper bulky. I can actually take a +2 Life Orb Vacuum Wave from Lucario, and that's pretty crazy. I had to do a lot of EVs to survive that, but I mean, if you look at my team, it gets kind of wrecked by Lucario. So I did feel like that investment was justified, as I only have really 2 checks to his Lucario should it set up, being my Excadrill and my Chandelure, which is also Choice Scarf. So this drill has enough speed to outspeed his Garchomp, which he elected not to bring. But yeah, the rest is in HP, Special Defense, and Attack. I have enough attack where even though I'm adamant, it's only 1 point higher than if I were Jolly Max, so that might mess with his calcs a little bit. I know Polish does do a lot of calcing during his games, so his calcs will tell him that I am Jolly Scarf, or if he hits me with a special attack, it's very close. If like the damage rolls are just right, it might be able to tell him that I'm AV, which means he might feel comfortable leaving his Roserade in, for example, and then I'll outspeed and kill it. And so that would be pretty nice. It's just a really wonky set that I think can do some different work for his team. Now the next Pokemon I brought is Alomomola. This Pokemon is basically there to switch into Braviary effortlessly if it is offensive, although I don't want it to be my initial switch in case it is sub-bulk up or sub-toxic. Anything with sub, I can't break the subs, so that would be mighty unfortunate. But this is basically there for the Garchomp, which he did not bring. I do have Ice Beam on this Alomomola just to hit those Garchomps so it can't sub up on me, which can definitely be frightening if it's a sub SD thing and it sets up on my Alomomola. I don't have a lot for it to outspeed. I mean, I can whittle it in range of Pidgeot, but once it's behind a sub, I have to sack a Pokemon to it basically to break the sub and then revenge it with something else. So I figured having Ice Beam in my last slot would be definitely worth it. But like from the stuff that you brought, I definitely would prefer Toxic, but like the risk of him bringing Chomp was definitely worth having Ice Beam, I guess, if that makes sense. So next up is the Stunfisk, which is my Stealth Rocker. Has Thunderbolt to do more damage to the Braviary rather than Discharge. I have Static, so that's basically Discharge's job anyway, so Thunderbolt for a little bit more damage is, I feel, worth it. I have Earth Power, and I think my last slot is Toxic. Because he does have a lot of walls that do not like being toxic, like Sylveon, for example. Licky Licky, Rotom being toxic would be really good for my Pidgeot, and Slowking being toxic can basically open the door for my Excadrill to just kill everything. So that's a nice set versus his team. And moving on, I have Scarf Chandelure. This also outspeeds Garchomp. I have Shadow Ball, Flamethrower. What was my last move? HP Ice. I remember it was for Garchomp in case that thing got out of hand. I did kind of over prep for Garchomp, I feel, even though because it didn't come, but I was really prepared for it, so I was a little bit weaker to other things, like, yeah, so the last move slot on Chandelure is Trick. I was kind of hoping to catch the Licky Licky on the switch-in and cripple that thing so that my Mega Pidgeot can go to town, because that is his most obvious switch-in to my Pidgeot, and I do have Hidden Power Water for the Rotom, which is a solid 2-hit KO if I predict it on the switch and he's specially defensive or something like that. So I did want to cripple the Licky Licky if possible, although crippling the Sylveon if it's defensive, or the Rotom if it's also defensive would also be pretty nice. So Trick is a really nice thing on there. And even if I get rid of my Scarf, I still have my Excadrill to revenge fast things, because that is also Scarf, so I don't mind losing the speed control in that way. Next up is my Mega Pidgeot, and I was actually able to run Modest this week because his fastest Pokemon was Garchomp, because he did trade away his Ambipom. So that is really nice. It lets me hit a 405 stat, I believe, and I have Hurricane, HP Water, Work Up, and Roost, which, unless his Licky Licky has Toxic, I do 1v1 it, and yeah, I can set up on it. And going into this game, I really thought he was going to be Body Slam Heal Bell, just so that he can stop my Alomola from spreading Toxics all around his team, because that could be kind of threatening, although he might have Aromatherapy on his Roserade instead. I did expect Heal Bell on either that or Sylveon. So Pidgeot was designed to take on that with relative ease, and yeah. Mega Pidgeot looking like the biggest offensive threat to him. His only answers are Licky Licky, which I'm hoping to trick. Sylveon can take a few of its defensive, Rotom can, but I have HP Water, and everything else just gets completely destroyed. So, next up I have Nasty Plot Life Orb Offensive Celebi with enough speed to, what was I creeping? I was creeping a max speed Roserade, I think. So I can definitely outspeed that, unless he's Choice Scarf himself, which I was expecting either the Roserade or the Braviary to be Scarf. I wasn't sure which one, but I knew one of them was going to be it. So as long as I figure that out, I know which one Celebi can outspeed. And that's pretty good, because at +2, Celebi can definitely muscle through his walls. Definitely break down the Rotom and the Licky Licky so that Pidgeot can have an easier time sweeping. And it's also a really nice switch into the Slowking, and yeah, it just looked like a really nice offensive threat. I believe my offensive moves are Giga Drain, Psychic, and I think I had Dazzling Gleam to hit the Garchomp, but he did not bring it, obviously. But anyways, his team obviously is the Braviary, Roserade, Slowking, Rotom Heat, Licky Licky, and the Sylveon. So overall, a pretty fat and slow team, so he definitely needs a Scarfer, and it just takes time to figure out which one that is. So I'm going to lead off with my Chandelure, as I can basically match up well versus the majority of his team, and he'll be pressured to switch into his Licky Licky, which I can just immediately trick right off the bat, as he does reveal here that his Braviary is indeed Choice Scarf, as he outsped my Scarf Chandelure. And now I'm hoping that he goes into his Licky Licky, but unfortunately he goes into his Rotom, which is also good for me, as he reveals he was actually a Salt Vest, which means he could be max HP, max special attack, Modest with AV to take hits better, or he could be a defensive spread and just want to take hits super well. So leading my Chandelure in to take the Volt Switch that I know is coming will allow me to calc his damage, and from that damage I can see that he is definitely max special attack, or at least very close, as I do fire off a Flamethrower because he wasn't staying in there for sure. and so Volt Switch into Licky Licky was the most obvious play, so I did end up just hitting that with a flamethrower to do a little more damage, pressure it to recover, and unfortunately I can't trick this in Assault Vest because obviously you can't trick while holding Assault Vest. But anyways, I'm going to switch out into my Stunfisk as he does throw off the Toxic, and that's getting pretty annoying dealing with the Bravery because this was my main switch in, and it getting weakened by Toxic is not good. He goes for Protect for some reason, probably scouting for my own Toxic, but I'm going to just set up my rocks. And now I think I'm going to go for a Toxic of my own as he switches into the Roserade, making a nice play. He had no reason not to do that, but I couldn't really risk predicting that and letting the Licky Licky go on for free as he sets up a sub. And now this turn, he took a long time figure out what he wanted to do, because it was entirely possible that I had Infiltrator on this thing. Although Flash Fire would be nice switching into the Rotom, it was a possibility, so he did take a while contemplating if he should risk it, but unfortunately he did decide to risk it as Extra Sensory bounces off because of my Assault Vest, as Flamethrower breaks the sub, and now he's forced out into his Licky Licky or his Rotom, as Roserade would die. I just go for the Flamethrower because Licky Licky is the more obvious of the switch-ins, but he does reveal here that he has Shadow Ball, which is unfortunate. It does kill my Chandelure, which means my Roserade switch-ins are kind of dropping low at this point. And also, I lose a really good way to hit Slowking for super effective damage, and that's going to end up being a huge issue later on. I do get a free switch out into my Pidgeot because he's locked into the Shadow Ball, which I'm immune to, and I can just take this as an opportunity to go for the Hurricane, and now that is indeed a roll. That was a high roll that I got there, relatively high roll, just slightly higher than a mid roll. So at this point I'm thinking he's probably going to go for Protect to get the Leftovers recovery so that he is 100% out of range of the next Hurricane. And so for that reason I go for the Workup, as he actually does not Protect and instead goes for the Wish. And now I have no reason not to go for the Hurricane, as being +2 is still a 2-hit KO on this, and +1 is still a 2-hit KO, so there's no point risking it. And if for some reason he decided not to Protect there, then I got a free kill. So yeah, nothing lost by doing that, as he goes for the Ice Punch. Does not freeze, does not crit, and that's good. I basically get a kill here, and work up Pidgeot doing what it does best, muscling through its own counters. So that's pretty nice. I go out into my Stunfisk on this Scarf Braviary because he doesn't really have a choice to U-turn, because if I stay in and he U-turns, he basically loses another Mon, and I know Polish is not going to make a bad play and do that, so I know he's just going for either the Brave Bird or the Return, both of which Stunfisk can eat up, and I do get fortunate and get the static paralysis on this thing, so now Mega Pidgeot outspeeds his entire team. And judging from the damage that I calced on Rotom, he is max HP, max special attack, which means he's not running any speed EVs, or at least that is what seems to be the case, which means he can't actually outspeed my Pidgeot even with a Choice Scarf. So that's really nice, Pidgeot being a huge threat to his team now. And here I'm just going to go for the Thunderbolt to deal as much damage to the Braviary as possible. He still outspeeds me because Stunfisk is slow and this is Choice Scarf. But yeah, he's going to take me out, but he is down to 12%, which is in Rock's range, and I'm just going to nab another kill with Pidgeot. He doesn't have a switch in. I get a crit, which is very unfortunate. Definitely mattered. But now he is going to go into his Sylveon, and I do have a very specially defensive Drill to switch into this effortlessly, although not quite as effortlessly as I hoped, because this is definitely Choice Specs damage that he did there. I am max special defense with 88 HP, so that did a lot of damage. So I know he's switching out here, so I'm going to go for the Earthquake rather than the Iron Head, as he reveals he's max defense Slowking, which is the one set that could wall my Excadrill. So now I take this as an opportunity to go into my Celebi, as it's a relatively free switch-in. And here, if I go for a Nasty Plot, I basically get a kill unless he goes Rotom. If he goes Rotom on my Nasty Plot, he has a very high chance of killing with Overheat, and I think it does 98% min or something like that, or like 90 something like that. It's in his favor, of course. And so I figured staying in with Slowking and letting it get weakened so my Excadrill can 2-hit KO anything on his team is a bad play, and it's kind of a choke on his part if he does do that. So I decided to just go for the Psychic, predicting the Rotom switch-in, as he does stay in, unfortunately, and reveals the Signal Beam to hit me for 4 times super effective damage. Fortunately, I do live, but I just lost pretty much all momentum that I had. So that's very, very unfortunate. I can't exactly go for the Giga Drain here because it will not kill. It'll only do about 50%, which is unfortunate. Had I gone for the Nasty Plot there, I got a kill 100% because Rotom, after it switches into Rocks, dies to a +2 Giga Drain because I am Life Orb. But I did feel like predicting the Rotom was the correct play for me to make, so I did do that, and it did not end up working out for me. So I am kind of forced to switch out, and Alamomola is the only thing that can really switch into it, as he makes the switch out into his Rotom Heat, predicting the Giga Drain or Leaf Storm. Fair enough play. I think he would still die to a Leaf Storm, so probably a Giga Drain or Energy Ball. But I do set up the Wish because I can tank a Volt Switch very easily. It only does slightly over half, and I can recover that off with a Regenerator while passing the Wish out to something else. As he goes out into his Roserade to threaten me out, but I do take this as an opportunity to heal up my Drill so I can keep that as a Sylveon switch-in as he goes through the Substitute, and I'm backed up to full health. So now I just go for Earthquake as it's my best play. It breaks the sub and does heavy damage to the Slowking if he decides to switch it in on Rocks, which he does do here, and you get a crit here. Now, I got a min roll crit, which is unfortunate. If I got any higher roll on that crit, I would kill with the next one and he'd be forced to switch out to gain Regenerator health, and he would lose a Pokemon to his Drill at that point. So the roll right here is, I believe, 34% to 41%. Something along those lines. And so, while it's in his favor to live, this is one of my best shots at actually killing the Slowking, and I feel like his best play, regardless, is to switch out to make sure that he lives. But he decides to just stay in, and do I get the roll? No, I do not. He lives on 1, and he's able to get off the Slack Off. Now here, I switch out into my Alamomola, as there's nothing I can really do at this point besides hope for another crit, which is a much lower chance than a high roll. So he does reveal a Toxic, which is unfortunate. But I am going to pass that Wish off into my Pidgeot, as he's revealed all 4 moves and he does not have the Ice Beam. So the only thing he can really do to touch my Pidgeot is either Scald Burn or Toxic. Toxic being the main one that I'm thinking of at this point. But he does switch out into his Sylveon, and I cannot kill the Sylveon with my Pidgeot at this range. If it's max HP, I need it down to 41% to guarantee the OHKO, because Sylveon is just stupidly fat. So I'm just going to switch out into my Excadrill, as it can take a Hyper Voice here pretty comfortably. I'm not going to be switching in again though, which is unfortunate, as he just sacks his Rotom Heat to the Rocks to get a free switch into his Slowking. Now here I'm in kind of a pickle. Basically my win con is getting the Pidgeot in and being able to OHKO everything on his team, or at least be able to 1v1 the thing that's out and then OHKO everything else. So that's the plan that I'm going to really go for here. What I need for that to happen is for Sylveon to take a few more rounds of Rock switching, and to lure that in, I can just go into Alamomola, because in his mind, every time I go into Alamola, he gets a free switch into his Sylveon to basically get a free kill. Because at this point I don't have a switch in. As he does switch in and I go for the Scald, if I get the burn, I basically win, because that puts him in 100% range of Hurricane. Although it's not quite that straightforward, I do have a very good chance of winning if I get the burn, but unfortunately I do not. So I do need him to switch into Rocks one more time to guarantee that. I do just sack my Alamomola, and I basically concede the fact that I'm not going to have a switch into Slowking. But I don't really need one at this point, as I can go into Excadrill and just fire off Earthquakes as he switches into Slowking. And here I can do one of 2 things. I can fish for a crit, or I can just keep this thing low, which is what I'm going to do. Um, what this does is, I'll just let this play out as he recovers off. If I keep him low enough where a +1 hurricane can knock him out, which I do manage to do here. Sorry, I got interrupted. As I was saying, I get a free switch out into my Mega Pidgeot, and right now, even though he has no special defense investment, Slowking is just naturally specially bulky. So a neutral hurricane cannot kill this without a crit. And I have one of two plays here. I can either go for the hurricane and hope that he doesn't slack off, and goes for the toxic, which I believe is the correct play for him to make. Or I can work up, and that's the play that I'm going to elect to do, because overall, work up gives me a very, very high chance of winning. Basically, if he slacks off and I work up, I 2-hit KO, as he can't OHKO me with anything. And if he goes for toxic, basically at +1 I kill everything on his team before he can kill me with the toxic damage. So I win that way. And if I work up and he scalds, basically he has to crit burn, and then he dies to the next one, so we'd have to switch out, get Regenerator, come back in, and hit me with another scald, and at that point he's severely weakened to the point where Celebi can kill it. And that could definitely be a potential win in that scenario. But instead, he decides to go for the slack off on my workup, which I don't know. It's not a bad play, but I don't think it was the correct play. And he can live a +1 hurricane. It will definitely 2-hit KO, but I do get a crit, which is unfortunate. But at that point, I'm pretty sure he lost no matter what he did. Even crit burn scald would not be enough to take me on out. So I do just kill the Sylveon with the +1 hurricane, definitely in range now, and the Roserade is just going to drop. I'm pretty sure that kills at least 17 Roserades. But yeah, so Mega Pidgeot getting 5 kills and Stunfisk getting the last one. So I'm pretty happy with that. We end up with a quite narrow and close 2-0 win. Very good game, very well played by Polish. I think the only place where I kind of misplayed was when I overpredicted versus the Slowking with my Celebi, and I just lost all my momentum, which was really hard to come back from, but I did manage to do it. And yeah, overall, we both played really well, and I think this was definitely a very, very good league game. Probably, I would say the best game so far in the season, and maybe we'll rematch in the playoffs or something like that. I do hope he makes playoffs, because he had a really strong start to the season and then kind of tanked it. So hopefully he can bounce back and make playoffs, but the division that we're both in is very competitive. Basically everyone is either 3-2 or 2-3 at this point, so differential matters a lot. And the fact that he only lost 2-0 to me is pretty good for him, because he retains a lot of differential, whereas if I beat him by a larger margin, he would probably be out of playoffs, to be honest, or have a very low chance of making it. But anyways, that is going to be all for me this week, and I'll see you guys in the next JBA match.